Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I'm Dr. Musk, not just the guy trying to colonize Mars or electrify every car on Earth, but someone who spent years wrestling with the ultimate machine, the human body. Today, I'm here to talk about something deeply personal, something that hit me harder than a failed rocket, landing chronic inflammation. And I'm going to tell you how a simple turmeric recipe, something you can whip up in your kitchen for less than a buck, changed my life in a single day. But more than that, I want to share a vision, a future where we don't just treat our bodies like outdated hardware, but optimize them like the cutting edge systems they are, blending nature, science, and a relentless drive to push the limits of what's possible. Let's start with the problem. Picture this. I'm 54, running Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink, and XAI, burning the candle at both ends, sometimes in the middle too. I'm coding, designing, troubleshooting, and dreaming up ways to get humanity to the stars. My brain's firing on all cylinders, but my body, it started sending me error messages. A few years ago, I noticed a nagging pain in my shoulder, like a dull knife jabbing me every time I reached for my laptop. Then my knees joined the party, creaking like a rusty hinge when I walked across the factory floor. And don't get me started on the fatigue, like someone swapped my battery for a cheap knockoff. I'd wake up after 4 hours of sleep, which is my norm, but instead of feeling ready to conquer the universe, I felt like I'd been hit by a Cybertruck. At first, I ignored it. Pain's just a signal, right? A data point. I figured I could power through like I always do. But it wasn't just pain, it was chronic inflammation, a silent saboteur that doesn't scream but whispers, following you like a shadow. It's not the kind of thing that lands you in the ER, but it grinds you down day after day. It's the ache in your joints when you climb stairs, the stiffness in your fingers when you try to open a jar, the fog in your brain when you're trying to solve a problem that could change the world. For me, it was the shoulder pain that made it hard to sketch rocket designs, the knee pain that slowed my pace during factory tours, and the exhaustion that made every decision feel like wading through molasses. Now, let's zoom out. Chronic inflammation isn't just my problem, it's a global epidemic. In the US, over 60% of adults over 50 deal with some form of chronic pain, much of it tied to inflammation. It's not just about sore joints, it's about your heart, your brain, your entire system running at suboptimal performance. Think of inflammation as a low-grade fire burning inside you. Acute inflammation? That's good. It's your body's immune system kicking into gear to heal a cut or fight an infection. But chronic inflammation? That's when the fire doesn't go out. It's like a bug in your code that keeps running in the background, draining your battery, slowing your processor, and eventually crashing the system. Why is this happening? Look at the world we built. We're living in the most advanced technological era in history, self-driving cars, AI that can write poetry, rockets that land themselves. But our bodies, they're still running on 100,000-year-old hardware, designed for a world where we hunted, gathered, and slept under the stars. Today, we're bombarded with stressors our ancestors never faced. 80-hour work weeks, screens blasting blue light into our eyes at midnight, diets packed with processed junk sugary sodas, fast food, and snacks that are more chemistry experiment than nourishment. Add to that the fact that most of us sit for 10 hours a day, barely move, and sleep less than our brains need to function. It's no wonder our bodies are throwing up error codes. I learned this the hard way. There was a moment a few years back when I was working on the Tesla Model Y production line. We were behind schedule, shocker. I know, and I was putting in 18-hour days, sleeping on a cot in the factory. My shoulders started screaming every time I lifted a tablet to check specs. I'd pop an ibuprofen, keep going, but the pain got worse. One night, I was sketching a new battery design, and I couldn't hold the stylus without wincing. That's when it hit me. My body wasn't just a tool, it was the foundation of everything I was trying to build. If it failed, my brain, my most valuable asset, would go down with it. Let's talk about the science for a second, because I'm not here to give you warm fuzzies, I'm here to break it down. Inflammation is driven by molecules called cytokines, which your immune system pumps out to signal danger. In small doses, they're lifesavers. But when you're stressed, eating poorly, or not sleeping, your body keeps churning them out like a factory stuck in overdrive. These cytokines attack your joints, your muscles, even your brain, contributing to everything from arthritis to heart disease to cognitive decline. Studies show chronic inflammation is linked to 7 of the top 10 causes of death in the US: heart disease, stroke, Alzheimer's, you name it. It's not just a pain problem, it's a performance problem. If your body's inflamed, your brain's not firing at 100%. And for someone like me who lives for solving impossible problems, that's unacceptable. I started digging deeper, applying the same first principles, thinking I used to design rockets, What's the root cause? Not just I'm getting older or I work too hard. Those are symptoms. The real question is, why is my body stuck in this inflammatory loop? And more importantly, how do I debug it? I realized that modern life, my life, was the perfect recipe for inflammation. Too much stress from running multiple companies, too little sleep. I'm guilty of thinking 4 hours is enough. And a diet that, let's be honest, sometimes leaned on energy drinks and pizza during crunch times. I was treating my body like a rental car, not a SpaceX Falcon 9. But here's where it gets interesting. Inflammation doesn't just mess with your body, it messes with your mind. There's a term for this: sickness behavior. When your body's inflamed, your brain gets signals that make you feel tired, irritable, even depressed. I noticed this during a particularly rough patch at Neuralink. I was trying to solve a problem with brain machine interfaces, but my brain felt like it was running at 10% capacity. I'd stare at a problem for hours, and the solutions just wouldn't come. That's when I knew I wasn't just fighting physical pain. I was fighting a system wide bug that was sabotaging my ability to think, create, and lead. So I did what I always do. I went back to the drawing board. I didn't want a band aid solution like another pill or a quick massage. I wanted to understand the systemy body and fix it from the ground up. I started asking, what's the simplest, most effective way to hit the reset button on inflammation? Not just for me, but for anyone who's feeling the weight of modern life. Because if I'm going to keep pushing humanity forward, I need a body and brain that can keep up, and I'm betting you do too. That's when I stumbled across something so simple, so ridiculously low tech, it almost felt like a joke. A spice sitting in my kitchen cabinet, something I'd used maybe once for a curry recipe and forgotten about. Turmeric. I'm not a guy who buys into ancient wisdom without evidence, but I'm also not arrogant enough to dismiss it. So I dug in, and what I found blew my mind, not because it was complex, but because it was so elegantly simple. Turmeric, specifically its active compound curcumin, is like a natural software patch for inflammation. It doesn't just mask pain, it targets the root cause, shutting down those pesky cytokines and restoring balance to the system. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Before I tell you how turmeric changed my life in a single day, let me be clear. This isn't about abandoning science or technology. I'm not here to sell you on some woo-woo cure. I'm here to talk about integrating the best of nature with the best of tech because that's how we're going to build a future where we don't just survive, but thrive at 54, 84, or 104. My shoulder pain, my foggy brain, my creaky knees, they weren't just personal problems. They were a wake-up call to rethink how we care for ourselves in an age where we're pushing the boundaries of what it means to be human. So buckle up. In the next part, I'll walk you through my failed experiments with conventional medicine, why they didn't work, and how I finally found a solution that did. Because if I can debug my own body, I'm betting you can too. Let's make it happen. All right, folks, let's dive into the messy part of my journey, the part where I threw every tool in the modern medical toolbox at my inflammation and came up empty-handed. I'm Dr. Musk, and if you know me, you know I don't give up easily. Whether it's landing a rocket on a floating platform or building a brain-computer interface, I'm all about solving hard problems. But when it came to the chronic pain in my shoulder, knees, and the fog clouding my brain, I hit a wall. And let me tell you, hitting a wall at 54 when you're trying to run multiple companies and push humanity toward the stars is not a great feeling. Today, I'm going to walk you through my failed experiments with conventional medicine, why they didn't work, and what they taught me about rethinking health from first principles. Buckle up, this is going to be a wild ride through the trenches of pills, machines, and a whole lot of frustration. Let's set the scene. A few years back, I was deep in the grind at Tesla, working on scaling production for the MO1 Do 3. My days were a blur of meetings, factory walkthroughs, and late night coding sessions. But my body was starting to betray me. My right shoulder felt like someone was twisting a screwdriver into it every time I moved. My knees groaned like old floorboards when I climbed stairs. And worst of all, my brain, my most trusted tool, wasn't firing right. I'd sit down to solve a complex engineering problem, and it was like trying to run a quantum simulation on a 90s desktop. I knew inflammation was the culprit, but I figured modern medicine had an answer. After all, we've got MRI machines, laser surgeries, and drugs that can target specific proteins. How hard could it be to fix a little joint pain and brain fog? So I went all in. First stop, the doctor's office. I sat down with one of the best orthopedic specialists in California. He ran tests, took x-rays, and prescribed a cocktail of nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, NSAIDs, for those who like acronyms. Ibuprofen, naproxen, the works. I popped those pills like they were the key to unlocking my productivity again, and for a few hours they worked. The shoulder pain dulled, and I could move without wincing. But here's the catch. The relief was temporary, like putting a band-aid on a leaking rocket fuel tank. By the next morning, the pain was back, and I was starting to feel something new: stomach discomfort. Turns out, NSAIDs can wreak havoc on your gut if you take them too often. I wasn't about to trade one problem for another, so I dialed back. Next, I tried physical therapy. I'm not one for sitting still, but I showed up to every session like a disciplined engineer. The therapist had me doing stretches, resistance band exercises, and even some fancy massage techniques. For weeks, I followed the plan to the letter. Me, the guy who questions everything, doing leg lifts and shoulder rolls like my life depended on it. And yeah, it helped a bit. After a session, I'd feel looser, like I'd oiled a rusty joint. But the effect faded fast. By the time I was back at the factory, the pain crept in again, like a glitch that keeps resurfacing no matter how many times you reboot the system. I started to wonder, um, am I just patching symptoms or am I actually fixing the problem? Then I went high tech. I'm Elon Musk, right? If anyone's going to throw cutting edge tech at a problem, it's me. I got my hands on a transcutaneous electrical nerve stimulation TENS UNITA device that sends electrical pulses to disrupt pain signals. It's like hacking your nervous system, which sounded right up my alley. I hooked myself up, feeling like a cyborg, and yeah, it numbed the pain for a while, but it was another temporary fix. The moment I turned off the machine, my shoulder was back to its old tricks. I even experimented with a prototype from Neuralink, not the brain implant, mind you, but a wearable that stimulates nerve pathways. Cool tech, but it didn't address the root cause. It was like overclocking a CPU without fixing the overheating issue. You're just delaying the inevitable crash. The lowest point came during a particularly brutal week at SpaceX. We were troubleshooting a Falcon 9 issue, and I was pulling 20-hour days. To keep going, I upped my dose of painkillers, prescription ones this time, stronger than ibuprofen. Big mistake. Not only did the pain come back, but the drugs messed with my sleep. I'd lie awake at 3 a.m., my brain racing but unable to focus, my stomach churning, and my shoulder throbbing. I felt like a rocket stuck on the launch pad, engines roaring but going nowhere. Worse, my cognitive performance tanked. I'd stare at a spreadsheet of launch trajectories and see nothing but noise. For someone who lives for solving problems, that was a wake-up call. My brain is my rocket fuel. If I'm fogging it up with meds, I'm sabotaging my mission. Let's talk numbers for a second, because I know you're curious. In the US, over 50 million adults deal with chronic pain, and we spend about $80 billion a year on pain management pills, therapies, surgeries, you name it. Yet, studies show that for chronic conditions like mine, drugs like NSAIDs only provide significant relief for about 30% of patients, and even then, the effects often wear off. Physical therapy helps, but only about 20% of people stick with it long term. And high-tech solutions, they're expensive, often experimental, and rarely address the underlying issue. I was spending thousands of dollars and countless hours chasing solutions that were, at best, partial fixes. That's not how you build a Mars colony, and it's not how you fix a body. What frustrated me most wasn't the pain, it was the lack of progress. I'm used to solving problems by breaking them down to their fundamentals, like figuring out why a rocket engine fails or how to make a battery last longer. But modern medicine felt like a black box. Doctors handed me pills, therapists gave me exercises, and tech promised quick fixes, but no one was asking the big question: why is my body stuck in this inflammatory loop? I started to see the problem with conventional approaches. They're optimized for acute issues: broken bones, infections, heart attacks. But chronic inflammation, it's a system-wide issue, and modern medicine is like a mechanic who keeps replacing tires instead of fixing the engine. This is where my first principles thinking kicked in. If you've heard me talk about rockets or cars, you know I'm obsessed with stripping problems down to their core. What's inflammation, really? It's not just pain, it's your immune system overreacting, like an AI model stuck in a feedback loop, pumping out cytokines that attack your own tissues. Drugs suppress the symptoms, but they don't rewrite the code. Therapy strengthens the hardware, but it doesn't address the software bug. I needed a solution that went deeper, something that didn't just mask the problem, but rewrote the system's behavior. That's when I started questioning everything. Why are we so reliant on pills that wreck our stomachs? Why are we spending billions on tech that only numbs the pain? And most importantly, why aren't we looking at what's worked for thousands of years? I'm not a hippie, far from it. I believe in science, data, and measurable outcomes. But I also know that sometimes the best solutions are hiding in plain sight, not in a lab or a pharmacy, but in the natural world we've been ignoring. I was ready to try something new, not out of desperation, but out of curiosity, the same curiosity that drove me to build reusable rockets and brain chips. This curiosity led me to a conversation that changed everything. One day, during a break at SpaceX, a young engineer mentioned she'd been using a turmeric drink to ease her joint pain. Turmeric? The stuff in my spice rack? I laughed it off at first, too simple, too low tech, but then I remembered simple doesn't mean ineffective. The Falcon 9's landing gear is simple, but it works because it's designed right. So I went home, pulled out my dusty jar of turmeric, and started digging into the science. And that, my friends, was the beginning of a breakthrough that didn't just fix my body, it changed how I think about health in the age of technology. Stay tuned for the next part, where I'll tell you how a $1 kitchen experiment outperformed a $10 zero medical regimen, and why I believe nature and tech can work together to revolutionize how we stay healthy. Because if I can debug my inflammation, I'm betting you can too. All right, folks, we've talked about the problem chronic inflammation sneaking into our lives like a software virus, and we've covered the dead ends of conventional medicine, where I threw every pill, therapy, and gadget at the issue with no lasting results. Now, let's pivot to the moment everything changed. I'm Dr. Musk, and today I'm going to walk you through how a dusty jar of turmeric in my kitchen became the unlikely hero in my battle against inflammation. This isn't just about a spice, it's about rethinking what health means, challenging our assumptions, and finding solutions that are so simple they almost feel like cheating. But trust me, this is no magic trick. It's science curiosity and a little bit of rebellion against a system that's been overcomplicating things for too long. Let's dive in. Picture this. I'm sitting in a SpaceX conference room, surrounded by engineers brainstorming ways to make Starship's heat shield tougher than a tank. It's late, my shoulders throbbing, and my brain feels like it's stuck in low power mode. One of the engineers, a sharp young woman named Priya, notices me wincing as I reach for my coffee. She doesn't say much at first, but later, during a break, she pulls me aside and says, "Elon, have you ever tried turmeric?" I laugh out loud. Turmeric? The yellow stuff I used once for a curry that stained my counter for a week? I'm thinking, I'm building rockets to Mars and you're telling me to raid my spice rack? But Priya's not phased. She tells me her mom back in Mumbai swears by it for joint pain, and she's been drinking a turmeric mix every night to ease her own aches from marathon coding sessions. I'm skeptical, but I'm also desperate. And if there's one thing I've learned from building companies, it's that the best ideas often come from unexpected places. That night, I go home, dig through my kitchen cabinet, and find a jar of turmeric powder buried behind some expired oregano. It's not exactly inspiring, it looks like something you'd sprinkle on a dish, not a solution to a problem that's been dogging me for years. But I'm a scientist at heart, and I don't dismiss ideas without testing them. So I fire up my laptop and start digging into the data. What I find blows my mind. Turmeric isn't just a spice, it's been a cornerstone of traditional medicine for over 2,000 years, especially in India's Ayurvedic system. It's not some trendy superfood fad, it's got centuries of real world use behind it, from easing joint pain to boosting immunity. The key player? A compound called curcumin, the chemical engine that gives turmeric its anti inflammatory superpowers. Let's break down the science, because I'm not here to sell you fairy tales. Curcumin works by targeting specific molecules in your body, like NFKB and cytokines, which are the masterminds behind chronic inflammation. These molecules are like rogue algorithms, telling your immune system to keep attacking when there's no real threat. Over time, this leads to joint pain, fatigue, even cognitive decline stuff I was feeling firsthand. Curcumin steps in like a master coder, rewriting the script to dial down the inflammation without wrecking your system. Study is peer-reviewed, not some blog post show curcumin can reduce inflammation markers by up to 60% in some cases. It's not a cure-all, but it's a targeted strike at the root of the problem, not just the symptoms. And unlike the NSAIDs I was popping, it doesn't chew up your stomach lining or mess with your sleep. Um, I'm reading all this and I'm thinking, why didn't I know about this sooner? In the US, we spend $4 trillion a year on healthcare, yet we're ignoring a compound that's been working for millennia, costs pennies per dose, and doesn't require a prescription. It's like discovering you can power a Tesla with a AA battery if you use it right. But there's a catch. Curcumin's not easy for your body to absorb on its own. That's where black pepper comes in. It contains piperine, a compound that boosts curcumin absorption by 2,000%. Yeah, you heard that right, 20 times more effective with just a pinch of pepper. It's like adding a booster rocket to your payload. This is why traditional recipes, like the ones Priya's mom used, always pair turmeric with pepper. It's not random, it's engineering. So I decide to run an experiment. I'm not a cook me idea of a meal as a protein bar and an energy drink, but I figure I can handle this. I grab a saucepan, pour in a cup of oat milk, because dairy's not my thing, add a teaspoon of turmeric powder, a pinch of black pepper, half a teaspoon of coconut oil to help with absorption, and a sliver of fresh ginger for an extra anti-inflammatory kick. I heat it on low, stirring like I'm mixing rocket fuel, not letting it boil. 5 minutes later, I've got a steaming golden drink that smells like earth and spice. I strain it to get rid of any grit, let it cool a bit, and take a sip. It's not exactly a milkshake kind of earthy, a little spicy, but it's warm, comforting, like something your body instinctively knows is good for you. I drink that first cup with zero expectations. I'm thinking, this is probably a waste of time, but at least I'm testing a hypothesis. I go to bed, expecting to wake up the same creaky, foggy version of myself. But the next morning, something's different. My shoulder doesn't scream when I roll out of bed. My knees feel looser, like someone lubed the joints overnight. And my brain, it's like someone turned up the brightness on my mental screen. I sit down to review some Neuralink data, and the numbers make sense faster than usual. I'm not saying I'm suddenly Superman, but I'm moving better, thinking clearer, and for the first time in months, I don't feel like my body's fighting me. Was it a fluke? I don't believe in flukes, I believe in data. So I keep going, drinking my turmeric mix every night. By day 3, I'm walking through the Tesla factory without bracing for pain at every step. By day 5, I'm sketching rocket designs without my shoulder locking up. And my sleep, oh man, my sleep, I'm not a great sleeper, never have been. 4 hours is my sweet spot. But after a week of this turmeric routine, I'm hitting 5, sometimes 6 hours, and waking up feeling like I've actually recharged. I pull out my Neuralink prototype, not the implant, just a wearable sensor. We're testing and check my brainwave data. Sure enough, my alpha waves, the ones tied to relaxation and focus, are spiking higher than they have in months. Let's talk numbers again. A 2017 study in the Journal of Medicinal Food found that curcumin reduced joint pain in 85% of osteoarthritis patients after 8 weeks. Another study from UCLA showed it improved cognitive function in older adults by 28% over 18 months. By results, I felt a difference in one day, measurable improvements in a week. I'm not saying it's instant for everyone who's complex, like rocket engines, but the data is clear. Curcumin works, and it works fast when you do it right. What's wild is how low tech this is. I'm used to solving problems with billion-dollar labs and AI algorithms, but here's a solution that costs less than a cup of coffee. A pound of turmeric powder enough for months costs about $5 at a grocery store. Compare that to the $500 I was spending monthly on meds, therapy, and fancy gadgets that didn't deliver. It's like choosing between a clunky gas-powered car and a sleek Tesla Roadster. One's expensive and inefficient, the other is simple, effective, and sustainable. But here's my big takeaway. Turmeric didn't just ease my pain, it shifted my perspective. I realized we've been conditioned to think health solutions have to be complex, expensive, or high-tech. We're told to trust pills over plants, doctors over our own instincts. But what if the real breakthrough is in combining ancient wisdom with modern rigor? Turmeric's been around for thousands of years, but it's only now, with studies and data, that we're proving why it works. It's like rediscovering fire in a lab. You don't need to reinvent it, just understand it better. This wasn't about abandoning science. It was about applying my first principles approach to a new domain. I asked, what's the simplest, most effective way to tackle inflammation? The answer wasn't in a pharmacy or a high-tech clinic, it was in my kitchen. But I didn't stop there. In the next part, I'll tell you how I took this low-tech breakthrough and supercharged it with cutting-edge tech wearables, AI, even Neuralink to create a health system that's not just reactive but proactive. Because if we're going to live long enough to colonize Mars, we need bodies and brains that can go the distance. Stay tuned. All right, folks, we've been on quite a ride. We've talked about the sneaky problem of chronic inflammation, my frustrating dance with conventional medicine, and how a simple turmeric drink turned my body around in a single day. I'm Dr. Musk, and today I'm diving into the next chapter. How I took that low tech kitchen experiment and supercharged it with high tech tools to create a health system that's not just about fixing problems, but optimizing performance. This isn't about choosing between nature and technology, it's about fusing them into a hybrid engine for your body and brain. Think of it as building a Tesla for your biology, sleek, efficient, and built to last. Let's explore how I blended turmeric's ancient power with cutting-edge tech to revolutionize my health and how you can too. When I first felt the effects of that turmeric drinkless pain in my shoulder, looser knees, a brain that felt like it had been upgraded to the latest OSI was hooked. But I'm not the kind of guy who stops at good enough. If I can make a rocket land itself, I'm not going to settle for a one-trick pony like a spice drink. I wanted to know, how can I take this natural breakthrough and amplify it? How can I make my body and mind not just pain-free, but peak, performing like a SpaceX Starship hitting escape velocity? That's when I turned to technology, not to replace turmeric, but to make it part of a bigger system, a health ecosystem that's proactive, data-driven, and personalized. First, let's talk wearables. I'm a data nerd, and I don't trust my gut feelings without numbers to back them up. So I strapped on a smartwatch, not just any watch, but one loaded with sensors to track my heart rate, sleep patterns, and even inflammation markers like C-reactive protein, CRP. These devices are like the telemetry systems we use on Falcon 9 launches. They give you real-time feedback on what's happening under the hood. After starting the turmeric routine, I noticed my resting heart rate dropped by 5 beats per minute within a week. A sign my body was under less stress. My CRP levels, which were creeping up during my inflammation days, started trending down. This wasn't just me feeling better, it was my body sending data that said, hey, this is working. But I didn't stop at wearables. I'm building Neuralink to connect brains to computers, so why not use that tech to optimize my own? I hooked up a prototype Neuralink sensor, not the full brain implant, mind you, but a non-invasive wearable that tracks brainwave activity. I wanted to see what turmeric was doing to my cognitive performance. The results were wild. After a few days of my turmeric drink, my alpha and theta waves, those tied to focus, creativity, and relaxation, were spiking higher than they'd been in months. It was like upgrading from a dial-up modem to fiber optic internet. I could dive into complex problems like optimizing battery chemistry or debugging AI algorithms with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. This wasn't just about pain relief. It was about unlocking my brain's full potential. Then I brought in AI. At XAI, we're working on systems to accelerate human discovery, so I tasked a team with building an algorithm to analyze my health data. I fed it everything, my wearable metrics, sleep logs, even my daily turmeric intake. The AI started spotting patterns I'd missed, like how my inflammation markers spiked after late night coding sessions or too much coffee. It suggested tweaks: cut caffeine after 2 p.m., add 15 minutes of stretching daily, and pair my turmeric drink with foods high in omega-3s, like salmon or walnuts. The result? My energy levels stabilized, my sleep deepened, and my pain stayed low. It was like having a mission control center for my body, guiding me to optimal performance. Let's talk about sleep, because this is where the rubber meets the road. I'm notorious for burning the midnight oil. 4 hours of sleep is my default, but chronic inflammation was making those 4 hours feel like two. I'd wake up groggy, my brain stuck in first gear. The turmeric helped, but I wanted to go further. I started using a sleep tracking app synced with my wearable, which gave me a breakdown of my sleep stages: REM, deep sleep, light sleep. The data showed I was barely hitting deep sleep, the phase where your body repairs itself. So I made changes: no screens an hour before bed, a cooler bedroom, 68 degrees Fahrenheit to be exact, and my turmeric drink as a nightly ritual. The warmth of the drink combined with its anti-inflammatory effects became my signal to wind down. Within 2 weeks, my deep sleep increased by 20%, and I was waking up ready to tackle the universe. Now, let's get to the turmeric recipe itself, because I know you're curious. It's dead simple, but precision matters like engineering a rocket. Take 1 teaspoon of turmeric powder, a pinch of black pepper, don't skip this, it's the booster for curcumin absorption, a cup of unsweetened almond milk, half a teaspoon of coconut oil, and a small piece of grated fresh ginger. Heat it on low in a saucepan, stirring for about 5 minutes until it's steaming but not boiling. Strain it, let it cool slightly, and drink it slowly. I do this every night like a pre-flight checklist for my body. The taste? Earthy, a bit spicy, but it grows on you like the satisfaction of solving a tough problem. Here's where it gets fun. I didn't just stop at drinking turmeric. I started experimenting with delivery systems. I worked with a team at XAI to create a curcumin-infused patch, like a nicotine patch, but for inflammation. It's still in prototype, but early tests show it can deliver a steady dose of curcumin through the skin, bypassing the gut for even better absorption. I also toyed with a smart kitchen device and automated mixer that preps the turmeric drink with perfect ratios every time. Why? Because consistency is key, and I'm all about automating repetitive tasks so I can focus on the big stuff like colonizing Mars or curing aging. But let's zoom out. This isn't just about me tweaking my health like a personal science project, it's about a bigger idea. Health in the 21st century needs to be a hybrid system. Nature, turmeric, ginger, whole foods gives us tools that have been battle tested for thousands of years. Technology, wearables, AI, neural sensors gives us the precision to use those tools like never before. Think of it like building a self-driving car. The engine, nature, provides the power, but the sensors and software, tech, make it go exactly where you want. Right now, the average American spends $10,000 a year on healthcare, yet 60% of us are living with chronic conditions like inflammation. We're throwing money at pills and procedures when we could be combining a $5 spice with a $200 smartwatch to get better results. This approach changed how I live. I'm not just pain free, I'm performing at a level I didn't think was possible at 54. I'm sketching rocket designs, debugging AI models, and running meetings without that nagging ache or mental fog. But it's not just about me. I'm sharing this because I believe we're on the cusp of a health revolution. Imagine a world where everyone has access to cheap, natural tools like turmeric, paired with personalized tech that tracks and optimizes their biology. Imagine doctors prescribing AI-tailored diets alongside spices or wearables that nudge you to drink your turmeric mix at the optimal time of day. That's the future I'm working toward at XAI, where we're not just building AI for science, but for human thriving. One last story before I move on. A few months ago, I was mentoring a young engineer at Tesla who was struggling with fatigue and joint pain, classic signs of inflammation. She was 30, way too young to feel like that. I shared my turmeric recipe and hooked her up with a basic wearable to track her progress. 2 weeks later, she came back, eyes bright, saying she was sleeping better, moving easier, and crushing her projects. That's when I knew this isn't just my story. It's a blueprint for anyone who wants to take control of their health, not just react to problems, but optimize for the long haul. In the next part, I'll wrap this up with a call to action: how you can start your own health experiment, why you should never stop tinkering with your body, and my vision for a world where we don't just live to 100, but thrive at 100. Because if we're going to build a multiplanetary civilization, we need bodies and brains that can keep up. Stay with me. We've come a long way, folks. I've shared how chronic inflammation nearly derailed my mission to push humanity forward, how conventional medicine fell short, how a simple turmeric drink rewired my body, and how I fused that ancient remedy with cutting-edge tech to optimize my health. I'm Dr. Musk, and today I'm not just here to tell you my story. I'm here to ignite a spark in you, to challenge you to take control of your body and brain, and to lay out a vision for a future where we don't just survive but thrive at 54, 84, or even 104. This isn't about quick fixes or chasing miracles. It's about treating your body like the ultimate startup, your personal SpaceX, and building a health system that's bold, innovative, and relentlessly focused on results. Let's talk about how you can start today, why you should never stop experimenting, and what a world optimized for human health could look like. Let's start with the big picture. We're living in an era of unprecedented possibility. We're building AI that can solve physics problems, rockets that can take us to Mars, and neural interfaces that might one day let us merge with machines. But none of that matters if our bodies and brains can't keep up. Right now, in the US, 60% of adults are grappling with chronic diseases tied to inflammation, heart disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's. We're spending $4 trillion a year on healthcare, yet half of us are walking around feeling like our bodies are running on outdated software. That's not just a personal failure, it's a systemic one. We're solving the wrong problems, throwing money at symptoms instead of building solutions at scale. If we can design a Tesla that drives 500 miles on a single charge, why can't we design a health system that keeps us sharp and strong for a century? This hit home for me during a recent moment of reflection. I was standing on the Tesla factory floor, watching robots assemble Cybertrucks with precision that boggles the mind. But my mind was elsewhere. I'd just come from a meeting where I struggled to focus, not because the problem was too hard, but because my body was dragging me down. My shoulder ached, my energy was tanking, and I felt like I was letting my team down. That's when I realized my body isn't just a vehicle for my brain, it's the foundation of everything I do. If I'm going to lead humanity to the stars, I need to treat my health like a mission critical system, and so do you. Whether you're an engineer, a teacher, a parent, or a dreamer, your body is your rocket. Neglect it, and you're grounded. Optimize it, and you can soar. So, here's my call to action. Start your own health experiment right now. Don't wait for a doctor's note or a crisis. Treat your body like a prototype and test something simple, like my turmeric recipe. It's not rocket science, literally. Grab a teaspoon of turmeric powder, a pinch of black pepper, a cup of almond milk, half a teaspoon of coconut oil, and a sliver of fresh ginger. Heat it gently, stir it like you're mixing fuel for a mission, and drink it every night for a week. But don't just drink it, track it. Get a $50 smartwatch or a free app to monitor your sleep, heart rate, or energy levels. Write down how you feel each day. Are you moving easier, thinking clearer, sleeping deeper? This isn't about blind faith. It's about running a controlled experiment on yourself. If I can test a rocket 100 times to get it right, you can test a spice for 7 days. Why turmeric? Because it's a proven tool, not a fad. Studies show curcumin, its active compound, reduces inflammation markers by up to 60% in some cases. It's been used for 2,000 years, not because it's trendy, but because it works. And it's dirt cheap, $5 for a month's supply versus $500 for a month of meds that might mess up your gut. But turmeric's just the start. Use it as a gateway to rethink your habits. Cut out the junk soda, fries, those late night donuts I used to live on during Tesla's early days. Add whole foods, berries, nuts, greens. Move your body, even if it's just a 10-minute walk, and prioritize sleep. I know I'm the last guy to preach about sleep, but even I've learned that 5 hours is better than four, and six is a game changer. Here's a story to drive this home. Last year, I was working with a young designer at SpaceX who was burning out. She was 28, brilliant, but her hands ached from typing, and she was nodding off in meetings. I saw myself in her pushing too hard, ignoring the warning signs. I shared my turmeric recipe and suggested she track her sleep with a basic wearable. A month later, she was a different person, more energy, sharper focus, and she'd even started running again. She told me, "Elon, I thought I was just getting old. Turns out I just needed to debug my body." That's the power of small, intentional changes. They don't just fix pain, they unlock potential. Now, let's talk about the future. At XAI, we're not just building AI to answer questions, we're exploring how it can optimize human health. I've got a team working on curcumin research, using machine learning to figure out how it interacts with different body types, diets, and lifestyles. We're developing algorithms to personalize health plans. Think of it like a Spotify playlist for your biology, recommending the right mix of foods, supplements, and habits based on your unique data. Imagine a world where your smartwatch doesn't just count steps, but tells you when to drink your turmeric mix for maximum effect, or when your inflammation markers are creeping up so you can adjust before you feel pain. But it's not just about AI. I'm pushing for a health revolution that blends nature and tech at scale. Picture this: community clinics offering free turmeric recipes alongside wearable devices that cost less than a Netflix subscription, schools teaching kids about anti-inflammatory foods the way they teach math. Companies like Tesla giving employees AI-driven health plans to keep them sharp and productive. This isn't sci feats doable. In India, turmeric is a staple, and their rates of certain inflammatory diseases are lower than ours. Meanwhile, we've got the tech to make precision health affordable. Combine the two, and we could cut healthcare costs by billions while helping people live better, longer. Here's my vision: a world where 100 isn't old, it's just getting started, where we don't just treat diseases but prevent them using tools as simple as a spice and as advanced as a neural sensor, where every person, from a factory worker to a CEO, has access to a health system that's personalized, proactive, and empowering. I'm 54, and I'm not slowing down, not because I'm special, but because I'm treating my body like a mission. I've got rockets to build, planets to colonize, and a species to save. But none of that happens if I'm grounded by pain or fog. So, what's your mission? Maybe it's raising a family, writing a book, or just enjoying a walk without wincing. Whatever it is, your body is your launch pad. Don't let it rust. Start with that turmeric drink, track your data, tweak your habits, and never stop experimenting. Because if I can take a $5 spice and turn it into a health breakthrough, imagine what you can do with a little curiosity and a lot of grit. Let's build a future where we're not just living longer, but living better, stronger, sharper, and ready for whatever comes next. Thank you, and let's get to work.